mainstream popular, everybody thought it was, something that, just kids that were into it like me were going to love. And nobody knew that kids were watching it. Everybody thought it was a show for adults. It had, some pretty rough content and nudity and language and the whole thing. Meanwhile, a lot of you are proof that kids were watching it. So, now it has a bigger fan base that grew up with it than it had when it originally premiered, which is incredible to me. Like I said, I've been doing this for 38 years. I've done so many different projects, many of which, paid for, my health insurance and my pension and my house and all these things that you probably have never heard of. And here I have this thing that's been around, since 1989, Tales from the Crypt, and it's one of the things that I loved as a kid with the comic book and stuff. And here, it's something that, I'm the best known for. So it's really kind of cool that it's come that full circle for me. It is amazing, and I'm really grateful for it. I'm grateful, obviously it was a well-made show. And I know you wanted to ask some questions about it, about the show and about its future and that kind of stuff. And,
well, sure. Well, you said you were a big fan of the comics.
Yeah.
So you would describe yourself as a horror aficionado?
I'm a specific horror aficionado. I loved the Universal horror monster movies as a kid. Loved the comic books because they were comic books. I love the stories. I love the artwork. I love the stories weren't that deep in the comic book. They're pretty extended within the Tales from the Crypt, the way we wrote the scripts. But it was all fun. I definitely got the fact that there was humor in it. My favorite movie as a kid was Abbott and Costello Meets Frankenstein. It had all the best Universal horror monsters in it. It had Abbott and Costello. It was funny. It was scary. I remember, these guys work in a warehouse and they find Frankenstein in a packing box. I was like, hey Mom, you can order a Frankenstein. I want one, I wound up getting like the 6-foot cutout of Frankenstein that sat in the corner of my room as a kid, And I would swear I'd wake up in the middle of the night, it was getting closer to my bed. I swear I was doing that, But, so I did love that. And then of course, when all the sci-fi stuff, like Attack of the 50-Foot Woman and Mothra and all, there you go. And we got Mothra in the room, ladies and gentlemen. I was hooked. I was hooked on that stuff, so it was pretty incredible. It was pretty. I never, like Mask of the Red Death. I remember going to drive-in with my parents, and we got to watch the cartoons, and then we were supposed to go to sleep in the back of the station wagon while my parents watched whatever it was. And I'm like glued to Mask of the Red Death. This is a really screwed up movie about the Spanish Inquisition with Vincent Price, Edgar Allan Poe. This is not a talk back yet. You get to ask questions in a few questions, and then I'm going to be with you. But I love the pink hair.
Couple more minutes.
I love the pink hair. But here, we're doing Mask of the Red Death, and it's an incredible, movie to me. I just thought it was such a cool thing, and the way it just made the hair raise on your arms and stuff. So I at that point, I was hooked in horror. I was never a huge, although I loved. For kicks, going with my friends in high school to go see, Night of the Living Dead and these kind of things. They would do a double feature when Dawn of the Dead came out and that kind of thing. Of course, we were laughing more at the guy who was tripping on LSD in front of the screen all night. Oh wow, look. It's true. Slasher movies. I love them, but they weren't like what I loved most about horror. It's some of the things I really love about horror nowadays is they still use so much practical effects in making them. It's not all the CGI and all the stuff that it takes to make. So they do use some CGI, but if you notice, you'll go see a movie that was even 3, 4, 5 years old from now, and you'll go, wow, the effects look really cheesy compared to what they're doing now. They were showing footage of it. God bless Margot Kidder. I met her at a lot of these conventions, and she was an amazing lady. If any of you ever got the chance to meet her, she was pretty incredible. She was a troubled woman, but she had some health problems and stuff. But she was She was an amazing actress and a really sweet woman. But they were showing some footage from Superman of her and Christopher Reeve flying through the air. You could tell they were on a wire, in a black room, and her dress was flowing like this, which of course, if they were going as fast as they were supposed to be going, they would be ripping off her body, and stuff like this. And you're sitting there going, oh my God, the effects, but they held up at the time. But the practical effects that you go and see where they just, do it black and white with K-Rose syrup as blood and, make an arm that falls off that's made out of rubber and stuff, and when they're using, I don't know what they were using for body parts in Night of the Living Dead when they had like entrails and stuff. I don't know if they were actual pig entrails or probably, or something like that, but whatever the practical effects were still resonate and still will resonate if you did them yesterday or today or tomorrow, as opposed to these, these computer generated effects that just don't hold up. The other night when we were watching Demon Night, was there anybody here that was at the screening the other night? That was pretty cool. It was a pretty fun time at the Amherst. We did it and did a Q&A. Psychological horror? Yeah, I love psychological horror. You mean like Rosemary's Baby or The Exorcist? Yeah, that's great stuff. That's some of my favorite. To me, that's the scariest horror stuff for sure.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, thank you. It's a good question. We're going to open the floor for sure, but that's a good question since we're right here. Probably still what was the scariest movie when I watched it, and I'm sure it probably still holds up, was The Exorcist.
Yeah.
I just had not seen anything like that, and it was so visceral, but then it was so like it attacked religion and your psyche and your belief in God and all these things.
That's what you remember most.
That's what and that was incredible. And what they put the actors through in order to bring that across to you would be easy today. It was not easy. If you've ever met Linda Blair and she's ever you've gone to one of her Q&As, the things that they put that poor woman through to be able to do the stuff that they did. She was a girl at the time, was pretty incredible. So, but yeah, that's that kind, The Omen and some of that stuff is really, really, really great in terms of horror. That's the scariest stuff to me. Tales from the Crypt obviously is not the scariest stuff. It's meant to be fun. If any of you have the box set, go back and look at the season 1 Behind the Screens. They talk about how Tales from the Crypt evolved from comic book to television to movies. Well, comic book to movies, they had that 70s movie with Ralph Richardson playing the Crypt Keeper, and then, which was just like a 3-episode movie. And then to TV, back to movies. And they talk about how, really the Crypt Keeper is your host. He's meant to do the, it is tongue-in-cheek, which is, there's my guys. They came in from, Hey Hollywood. Hey. We saved you a seat over there. Anyway, this is my bouncers. No, really, there's my stalkers. Yeah, right. And so, but they, the Crypt Keeper is meant to be that ride to the top of the roller coaster before they drop you, It's like, some movies and some episodes of Tales from the Crypt are not what you might find as fun as some of the other ones. Everybody has their favorites. I know some of the ones that people love the most are like, All Through the House, the Christmas episode. I don't know what that's all about, but people love mixing Christmas with horror. Naughty and nice. It's just really, really, really great. And Bob Zemeckis obviously is a great director. Every single one of those, except the very last episode that was shot, which is the animated one of the 3 pigs, all the other ones were all based on EC comic stories. Whether it be Tales from the Crypt, Tales from the Vault, Two-Fisted Tales, or whatever the EC comics that they licensed to do those with. So it's some pretty cool stories that you could attack, but they're all fun. And the Crypt Keeper was meant to let you know that this was supposed to be fun. And I think that that's why we were surprised by the fact that kids were into it. I mean, I certainly would have been into it if I was walking by the TV set and I saw some creepy puppet cackling at me, or I heard that from the other room. I would definitely have to come see it, and I'm sure it's what inspired my choices in what I did vocally, and their choices in what they made. I constantly was begging them to make a kids version, a live action kids version, and they were like, too scary. Little did we know they were watching it anyway. They did the cartoon, they did the game show, we made things for kids, but ultimately, you know, the kids that loved it found it as, you know, the adult version. Luckily, you know, when it came on Fox after its original airing on HBO, you know, it was done on network television, so some people got to watch it with their kids because they cut out, you know, the racy content, even though it was still kind of, you know, you can find out pretty quickly if your kid is gonna, you know, either go, oh, that scares me, but I really like it, or, you know, I just turned into George Carlin there for a second. I don't know what. I really like it. Or, you know, or if your kid's gonna forever be scared of it, you know. But I constantly heard the stories. You know, my parents wouldn't let me watch it, so I watched it with my grandma on the weekends. You know, my parents knew I loved it, and they'd only let me watch it if I did my homework. You know, my parents knew I was afraid of it. They'd make me watch it if I didn't do my homework. You know, I mean, there's a lot of great stories, and I'd love to hear some, you know, as we go on. Why don't you ask a few questions, then we'll open the floor.
Sure. Well, unfortunately, we only have about 15-20 minutes left, so I was going to open up the floor to anyone. Step right up to the mic, ask away.
Great. Or if you have a great story about, you know, what Tales from the Crypt did to you. I said, just walk on up. You don't even need to raise your hand. Stand in line, and then whoever's... What's that?